Caitlin Clark is stunned. Fans are furious. And Coach Stephanie White? She's either playing chess or lighting the whole board on fire. Because when you bench Chloe Bibby, a proven scorer, team energy spark plug, and one of the only players who's consistently delivered off the bench, you're not just making a tactical decision. You're throwing gasoline on an already unstable fire. Let's rewind. If you're here for the real story and not the filtered version, subscribe. And if you're sticking around for the next meltdown, you better definitely subscribe. Chloe Bibby isn't some fringe rotation player. She's that girl who can come in cold and still drop 8 points in 2 minutes. She's the kind of player coaches dream of, tough, confident, and productive without demanding a starting role. She knows her lane, and she's owned it. But now, that lane's been blocked. And the reason? According to Coach White, defensive matchups. Please, that excuse landed with thud heard across every Fever fan forum. Because here's what defensive matchups really sounds like to people watching this team implode game after game. I don't want to admit I'm playing favorites. I'm married to a defensive system that isn't working. I'd rather lose my way than win another. Harsh? Maybe. But this team is clinging to playoff hopes, and every decision now is weight. And when you bench a spark like Bibby while your team scores 68 points in a must-win game, that weight turns into anger. Legitimately, the fans aren't buying the excuse. The analysts aren't buying the excuse. And honestly, the players might not be either, because you can feel the shift. There's tension now. Body language on the court is tight. Even Caitlin Clark, ever professional, has started showing signs of visible frustration. She's putting up stats. She's logging heavy minutes. But the rotations around her make zero sense. Shooters benched. Defenders out of position. And let's not even talk about how 3 of her best fast break passes went to players who fumbled them like they were handling soap. You can see it in her eyes. She's thinking, what are we even doing here? Because Caitlin Clark didn't come to the WNBA to be a development project. She came to compete. And right now, it looks like the Indiana Fever are barely trying to keep up. And here's where things get ugly. The whispers have started. The ones that question whether Coach White's decisions are really about basketball. Whether there's a deeper issue behind Chloe Bibby's benching. Whether this is less about matchups and more about control. Because when a coach consistently sidelines productive players, even when the team is struggling, it stops looking like strategy and starts looking like ego. And that's the word swirling around now. Ego. That Stephanie White is so determined to be seen as a system coach, so attached to her vision of what this team should be, that she's willing to let actual talent rot on the bench. And let's not forget, this isn't an isolated incident. This is a pattern. We've seen other bizarre rotations. Players yanked after a single mistake. Scorers bench when the team is down 10. Minutes going to defenders who can't shoot while the offense crumbles. It's like she's building a puzzle with pieces from 5 different boxes. And Caitlin Clark is stuck in the middle of it. She was supposed to be the centerpiece of a new era for Indiana. She's got the eyes, the fans, the endorsements, the momentum. But instead of being lifted, she's being dragged down by coaching that doesn't seem to understand how to use her. Do you run pick and roll for her? Rarely. Do you stagger minutes so she's on the floor with shooters? Not consistently. Do you give her time off the ball so she's not exhausted running the offense 40 minutes a night? Absolutely not. It's like they're daring her to carry the team until she breaks. And now, the one player who could have relieved some of that pressure, Chloe Bibby, has been benched with no real explanation. If you're a fan, you're pulling your hair out. If you're Caitlin Clark, you're wondering what comes next. And if you're Chloe Bibby, you're sitting on the bench watching teammates trip over themselves in the fourth quarter while you hold a clipboard and a poker face. But let's call it what it is. This is sabotage. Whether it's conscious or not, Coach White is sabotaging this team's best shot at success with these questionable choices. The benching, the inconsistent lineups, the refusal to let players like Bibby cook. And the deeper question no one wants to say out loud, is she sabotaging Caitlin Clark's rise on purpose? Because the timing of everything is just too strange. The season starts with Clark being hyped as the future of the league. She delivers. Big numbers. Big crowds. A cultural moment. But suddenly, she's struggling with rotations, getting hit with screens, no protection, no spacing, constant contact. And the coach, still preaching defensive integrity while the scoreboard bleeds. If this were any other rookie, maybe you'd chalk it up to growing pains. But Clark came in ready. She didn't need babying. She needed structure. Instead, she got experiments, guesswork, chaos. And now Bibby, someone who could be part of the solution, is being kept out of the game like she's a liability instead of a weapon. Fans know. They see it. They're not stupid. They've watched enough hoops to know when a coach is coaching to prove something, not coaching to win. And what Stephanie White seems desperate to prove is that her way is the only way. Even if that means losing games. Even if that means smothering the team's energy. Even if that means watching Caitlin Clark slowly turn into a solo act with no rhythm section. It's not just risky. It's irresponsible. Because this isn't just about one season. This is about a young core, a once-in-a-generation player, a franchise trying to claw its way back into relevance after years of mediocrity. And instead of seizing the moment, White seems more interested in making sure the spotlight stays on her system than letting the players shine, which leaves us here. Bibby on the bench, Clark running on fumes, the fans booing substitutions, and the fever circling the playoff drain. Whatever's going on in that locker room, it's not about chemistry. It's about control. And until someone steps in front office, leadership, someone, and reminds Stephanie White that this isn't about ego, this is about wins, the fever are going to keep melting down. And honestly, we wouldn't blame Caitlin Clark one bit if she started asking, is this really where I'm supposed to grow? Or is this where they want to contain me? When Bibby got benched, most fans assumed it was a temporary shakeup, maybe a matchup thing. Maybe she tweaked something in practice. Wrong. Game after game, nothing changed. She stayed stapled to the bench while the team hemorrhaged offense. And let's not forget, this is the same Bibby who can check into a cold game, hit a quick three, and draw a charge on the next possession. She's gritty. She's scrappy. And most of all, she delivers. You don't sideline a player like that unless you have a very good reason. But what was the reason? Defensive rotations, according to Coach White. No, seriously, that's the line they're rolling with. As if Bibby's presence on the floor is somehow more of a liability than half the team jogging back in transition, like they're waiting for an Uber. Meanwhile, fans are sitting at home watching this disaster unfold and asking one obvious question. What game is Stephanie White coaching? Because it's not the one we're watching. Every week, it's the same story. Caitlin Clark gets double-teamed. Ball gets swung to the wing. And instead of someone like Bibby ready to catch and shoot, it's someone who hesitates, pump fakes, and bricks a contested mid-range. That's coaching malpractice. You've got one of the best passers in the game, and you're surrounding her with lineup choices that make zero sense. Where's the floor spacing? Where's the rhythm? Where's the urgency? It's like White is coaching this team like it's her personal chessboard, and the players are just pawns in her grand master plan. Even if that plan is clearly losing games. Let's be blunt. The Indiana Fever aren't short on talent. They're short on leadership. And no, not from Caitlin Clark. She's doing everything you could ask. She's showing up. She's handling the media circus. She's dishing out 8+ assists a game while getting thrown to the hardwood every other possession. But you can feel the wear, the weight, the disappointment. Because no matter how hard she plays, the rotations don't help her. The schemes don't empower her. And the person calling the shots seems more interested in proving her own philosophy than actually adjusting to win. And when Bibby spoke through her absence, that silence was deafening. She didn't blast the coach on social media. She didn't post some cryptic story. She just sat there, fully healthy, game after game, watching her team struggle while she collected dust on the sidelines. That says everything. When your veterans don't even bother stirring the pot, it means they've already read the writing on the wall. This coach doesn't want me here. And let's be honest, this isn't the first time White's rotations have raised eyebrows. This is the same coach who's pulled players mid-hot streak, who's called timeouts at the worst possible times, who's insisted on double big lineups that tank the offense. And when asked about it, she always falls back on the same phrase. We're focused on our defensive identity. Okay, but what identity? Because if defensive identity means scoring 64 points while giving up wide-open threes, then congratulations, you build a team that's hard to watch and still loses. Let's be real. You don't bench Bibby to make a defensive point. You bench Bibby when you're trying to send a message. And that message, it's not to her. It's to everyone else on that roster. Don't challenge me. Don't question the system. Fall in line. You can almost see the shift on the court. Players hesitating more. Less fluidity. Less joy. Caitlin's not celebrating buckets the way she used to. Teammates aren't rallying together after big plays. It feels cold, robotic, tense, because everyone knows the game within the game is happening behind the scenes. And it's ugly. And this isn't just about one season anymore. This is about a franchise that was handed a golden ticket. Caitlin Clark, the most hyped rookie in WNBA history. And instead of building a dynasty around her, they're burying her under bad coaching and ego-driven decisions. Fans aren't blind. They're tuned in. And when they watch Bibby bench while Clark gets clobbered with no help and the offense goes ice cold, they're not blaming the players. They're blaming Stephanie White. And here's where it gets scarier. What if this keeps happening? What if Bibby never sees consistent minutes again? What if Caitlin starts to pull back, emotionally, mentally, even physically, because the system she's in doesn't value her leadership? What if this is how stars burn out? Because when a coach starts coaching against their own team, whether they realize it or not, the damage doesn't just show up in the win-loss column. It shows up in the culture, the locker room, the relationships. And once those fracture, it's over. This team was supposed to be the WNBA Cinderella story. Caitlin's arrival, the Fever's playoff return, young talent blooming into something special. Instead, it's feeling like a cautionary tale about what happens when a coach forgets who the stars are actually playing for. Not for the system, not for the playbook, for each other and for the fans. And right now, neither group is happy. The front office may not want to admit it, but if this continues, it's not just Bibby they'll lose. It's the fans, the momentum, maybe even the trust of their own locker room. So the question becomes, how long does Stephanie White get before this all blows up? Because unless something shifts and fast, this team is going to miss the playoffs, waste a generational rookie year, and alienate key players in the process. And if that happens, Bibby's benching won't be remembered as a one-off bad call. It'll be remembered as the moment everything started to unravel. So what's it going to be, Indiana? Are you ready to win? Or are you ready to explain away another season of underachievement while your stars sit silent and your fans grow louder? Because right now, the message from Coach White is clear. My way or the bench. And based on what we're seeing on the court, that way doesn't lead to a championship. It leads to the exit. Now here's where it gets even messier. Because once you start peeling back the layers of this whole Bibby benching situation, you realize this isn't just about one rotation decision. It's about trust. It's about momentum. And it's about a coach who seems more interested in being right than being effective. Because if we're being honest, Chloe Bibby isn't some flash-in-the-pan player who had one lucky night and fans are overreacting about. No, she's been consistently productive. She gives you scoring, hustle, and energy, exactly the kind of depth a playoff team needs down the stretch. So when Stephanie White benches her with zero explanation beyond vague, defensive matchups rhetoric, fans don't just get angry. They get suspicious. Because here's what they've seen. When Bibby's on the floor, the offense actually moves. Spacing improves. The pace picks up. You see Caitlin Clark getting clean looks. You see off-ball movement. The team breathes. But without her, it's a slog. A half-court mud puddle with Clark running off double screens just to find a sliver of daylight. But somehow, White doesn't see that. Or worse, she does, and she's ignoring it. Why? Let's talk about the coaching ego problem that no one in the organization seems willing to address. Because that might be the biggest opponent Caitlin Clark's facing right now. And no, it's not Aya Wilson or Eric Ogunbowl. It's her own coach. Stephanie White came into this job with her own vision, her own system, her own voice. And sure, that's fair. Every coach does. But when you're gifted a once-in-a-generation rookie like Clark, you don't double down on your system. You adapt. You build around her. You meet the moment. Instead, White's stuck trying to make Caitlin Clark fit into a team that should be adjusting around her strengths. You got Clark playing 38-plus minutes per game, initiating everything, handling traps, taking hits, and somehow still putting up near triple-doubles. And your idea of strategic flexibility is to bench your best bench scorer? It's delusional. And the fans? They know it. They're watching from home, seeing Bibby's smiling face stuck at the end of the bench while the offense collapses in real time. They're on Twitter. They're on Reddit. They're in the arena chanting for Clark, while wondering why no one's helping her. It's getting to the point where you can feel the tension on the floor. Every missed rotation, every offensive breakdown, every confused glance from Clark when a teammate cuts the wrong direction. And on the sideline, White, arms crossed, stoic, still clinging to her principles. Let's be real. This isn't coaching. This is a power trip. And the danger of that? It alienates your locker room. Because it's not just Bibby who feels the sting. You think the other players don't notice? You think they're not watching how someone like Bibby, who shows up, produces, and doesn't cause problems, gets iced out for no clear reason? It sends a message. And it's the wrong one. It says performance doesn't matter. It says buy-in doesn't guarantee minutes. It says personal agendas trump team chemistry. And for a team as young and promising as the Fever, that's poison. Because Caitlin Clark might be the headliner, but she can't do it alone. She needs secondary scorers. She needs shooters who keep the defense honest. She needs a rotation she can trust. Right now, she's got a carousel of inconsistency. One game it's Kelsey Mitchell, one game it's Boston, one game it's, well, nobody. And the one steady scoring punch off the bench? Sitting in warm-ups. And let's not forget the emotional toll this takes on Bibby herself. She's not just sitting out games. She's sitting out opportunities. In the WNBA, where roster spots are tight and career windows are short, every game matters. Every moment on the floor is a resume. And now, thanks to a coach who won't budge, she's losing that visibility, that momentum, that chance. So you can't blame fans for being furious. You can't blame them for wondering if there's something deeper going on behind the scenes. Is it personality clash? Is it favoritism? Is it a quiet message being sent about playing the right way? Whatever it is, it's not working. And here's the harsh reality. You don't get a rookie like Caitlin Clark twice. You don't get that kind of cultural wave, that kind of media pull, that kind of potential to completely reshape your franchise's trajectory. And if the Fever let this window close because of stubborn coaching decisions, that's not just poor leadership. That's organizational malpractice. So now we're watching in real time as Caitlin Clark plays through double teams and exhaustion, while her teammates shuffle in and out of the lineup like it's preseason. Meanwhile, Bibby sits on the bench high-fiving, cheering, staying positive because that's who she is. But don't mistake her silence for comfort. She sees it. And when players like her finally speak out, because let's be honest, the moment's coming, it won't just be about this one benching. It'll be about everything. The system, the strategy, the refusal to adapt. And then there's a looming question everyone's too afraid to ask. What if Caitlin Clark leaves? Maybe not this year. Maybe not next. But if she spends 2 or 3 seasons trapped in a cycle of mismanagement, poorly built rosters, and rigid coaching, if she's constantly forced to carry 95% of the load, while players who could help her are benched out of spite, eventually, even the most loyal star starts looking elsewhere. Overseas, team trade, expansion opportunity. Because Caitlin is a competitor, but she's also smart. She knows how short a player's prime is. She's not going to waste hers in a system that's actively working against her. And let's be honest, the WNBA needs Caitlin Clark a lot more than Caitlin Clark needs the WNBA. So the pressure is on, not just for Stephanie White, but for the entire Fever front office. They need to get control of the narrative now. They need to make it clear that they're building around Clark, not stifling her. That every decision going forward is about winning, not proving a point. And maybe that means having a hard conversation with Stephanie White. Maybe that means demanding accountability for the Bibby benching. Maybe that means reminding her that this team isn't about her. It's about maximizing the window while it's open. It's about nurturing your stars, not burning them out. It's about choosing production over pride. Because right now, the Fever aren't just losing games, they're losing trust. From fans, from players, from the future they said they were building. And unless something changes, unless they start putting talent on the court and egos on the shelf, then this entire season, and maybe even the Caitlin Clark era in Indiana, will be remembered for what it could have been. And that would be the biggest loss of all.